Through you, Mr. Chair, I can confirm that it is 4:12 PM, and we are now live streaming and recording. You may begin your meeting.
Okay, thank you. There are three members of the committee here today. We have a quorum, and I will call this meeting to order at 4:13 PM. Ms. LeGros, could you begin by reading the land recognition statement?
The town of Pelham is situated on treaty land steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Haudenosaunee, Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island live and work in Niagara. The town of Pelham stands in solidarity with all Indigenous peoples, past and present, acknowledging that our high standard of living is a result of the resources and lasting friendship of Indigenous peoples. Through you, Mr. Chair, you may proceed.
Okay, thank you. So we have three members of the committee here today. We have Mr. McCann, Ms. Sarko, and myself, Isaiah Bannock. We also have staff members in the room. We have Ms. LeGros, Secretary-Treasurer, Shannon LaRock and Andrew Edwards, who are planners, and our engineering manager, Derek Young. This is a hybrid hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the Town of Pelham. Everyone present and viewing at home via live stream will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. Agencies commenting on applications may request that certain conditions be imposed should an application be approved. Voicing objections to these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. The purpose of the application relative correspondence will be heard, following which the applicant will be given the opportunity to address the application. During the public portion of each application, we will hear from anyone wishing to submit verbal comments or submit a written comment via email to clerks@pelham.ca. So anyone looking to send an email goes to clerks@pelham.ca. Comments heard following the public portion will not be considered. At the conclusion of the discussion, the committee will render a decision and advise of any applicable conditions. Specific wording for conditions may be determined by the committee following the hearing. Copies of decisions will be mailed to the applicant, agent, and members of the public that have submitted comments. Notices of decision can also be obtained by request to the Secretary-Treasurer. Committee members are asked to raise your hand if you wish to speak and vote, and applicants, agents, attendees are advised that they're free to leave the webinar or the room once a decision has been made on the application. Okay, I'm going to move to approval of the agenda.
I move we approve this agenda.
I second.
Okay, thank you. Pecuniary interest. Does any member of this panel have a pecuniary interest in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act in any of the applications to be considered at this hearing?
I do not.
And neither do I.
And I do not. Okay, Ms. LeGros, any requests for withdrawal or adjournment?
There have not been any requests for withdrawal or adjournment.
All right. We are going to move to the first application, but before we do that, I just want to say a couple of things in addition to my opening comments. The first application will be heard will be the site on Canberra Road, and then we will move to the Highway 20 matter. Those two matters are on the agenda for today. What's really important to the committee is that we have decorum during this meeting, which means that all comments are to be addressed and directed to the committee. That's to us up at the front of the room. We anticipate there will be discussion about the applications. There's clearly some strong opinions held on these, and we want to hear from everybody about that. And everyone will have an opportunity to speak who would like to speak to us, and we will hear all opinions. But I really, again, want to stress the need for decorum as part of this meeting so that the committee can appropriately consider and think about all the comments being made. I'll talk a little bit more about the process after the first application, but maybe we can move to that at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Committee of Adjustment hearing. The Town of Pelham is holding hybrid Committee of Adjustment hearings. A hybrid hearing involves a mixture of in-person and remote attendance and participation. The following presentations are based upon the Town of Pelham's Planning Department report and analysis. Please note that no decisions have been made prior to this public hearing. All comments received from commenting agencies and the public have been forwarded in full to the Committee of Adjustment members for their consideration and will appear summarized on the slides to follow. Decorum. The Committee of Adjustment is a formal public hearing requiring decorum, meaning all comments are to be made through the chair. If you have pre-registered to speak virtually or are participating in person, you will be given an opportunity to address the committee at the public portion of the meeting. If someone ahead of you has made the same comments that you wish to make, there is no need to repeat the same comment. Please keep all comments concise. If you are live streaming and wish to submit a comment live, please email clerks@pelham.ca. And note, comments must be received during the public portion of the meeting only. Otherwise, they will not be considered. Inappropriate comments will not be tolerated. Please note that if decorum is not maintained, the meeting may be recessed and individuals will be asked to leave. So our first application today is an application for minor variance, file A11-2025P, regarding 328 Canberra Road. The subject land is located on the south side of Canberra Road, lying west of Effingham Street, being Part Lot 6, Concession 8 in the town of Pelham and known as 328 Canberra Road. The application seeks relief from Section 6.7.2 zone requirements, maximum front yard to permit a maximum front yard setback of 13.58 meters, whereas the bylaw requires a maximum of 6 meters. Section 4.3A, parking area and driveway requirements, driveways, to permit a maximum driveway width of 8.2 meters, whereas the bylaw requires a maximum of 6 meters. To date, the following comments have been received. Building and Public Works, please see the conditions. Niagara Region. Niagara Region recommends that the town require a Stage 1-2 archaeological assessment and that no demolition, grading, or other soil disturbances take place on the property until a letter from the MCM is submitted confirming that the required archaeological assessment report has met licensing and resource conservation requirements. And 2, they have no objection to the new residential dwelling provided a new sewage system permit is applied for and a system meeting the current Ontario Building Code requirements is installed. There was one public comment that was received and is summarized as follows. They have no objection to the minor variance, but express concern with volume of runoff, potential impacts of sump pump discharge, and requested that the downspouts and sump pump discharge to the east of the property. Minor variance test 1, the variance is minor in nature. As to Section 6.7.2 zone requirements for the maximum front yard, yes, it will have minimal impact on the streetscape, allows adequate lot area for setbacks and private servicing, and is consistent with the varying front yard setbacks in the surrounding area. As to Section 4.1.4.3A, parking area and driveway requirements, yes. The 2.2 meter increase is visually unobtrusive given the rural residential context and not expected to adversely affect neighboring properties or the character of Canberra Road. Test 2, is the variance desirable for the development or use of land? As to Section 6.7.2, maximum front yard, yes. The dwelling will not significantly alter the character of the neighborhood and the new dwelling is an appropriate development. Section 4.1.4.3A, parking area and driveway, yes. The increased driveway width provides safe access, supports the continued residential use of the property, and does not significantly alter the rural residential character of the neighborhood. Test 3, does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? Section 6.7.2, Maximum front yard, yes, by ensuring the proposed setback is consistent with surrounding dwellings, preserves the streetscape character, and prevents the garage from dominating the facade. Section 4.1.4.3A, yes, by providing safe access, preserving landscaped areas, and ensuring the driveway does not dominate the lot frontage or affect compatibility with surrounding properties. Test 4, does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? For both sections, 6.7.2 and 4.1.4.3A, yes, a single detached dwelling is a permitted use, and the requested variances will not create significant impacts or prevent conformity with the plan. Based on the analysis, staff is of the opinion the variance is minor in nature, conforms to the general policies and intent of both the official plan and zoning bylaw, and is appropriate for the development and use of the land. Planning staff recommend that application number A11-2025P be approved, subject to the following conditions: that the applicant obtain all necessary demolition permits prior to construction commencing to the satisfaction of the chief building official. Obtain all necessary building permits prior to construction commencing, and that the application include the approved septic permit from Niagara Region to the satisfaction of the chief building official. Obtain approval for driveway entrance and culvert permits as applicable, issued through the Public Works Department to town standards. The applicant shall bear all costs associated with these works. Submit a comprehensive lot grading and drainage plan for the parcel demonstrating that the drainage neither relies on nor negatively impacts neighboring properties, and that all drainage will be contained within the respective lot. Grading plans are to be signed by a qualified professional engineer or an Ontario land surveyor. And obtain a new sewage system permit from Niagara Region and install a sewage system designed and constructed in accordance with the current requirements of the Ontario Building Code to the satisfaction of the Niagara Region. And through you, Mr. Chair, we do have the applicants with us today.
Okay, thank you, Ms. LeGros. So how we like to proceed after this presentation is we hear from the applicant if they'd like to speak. Then there's a public portion of the meeting where anyone is invited to speak, and then the applicant is invited back if they wish to speak again and respond to anything. So with that, I would invite the applicant, if they're here and they'd like to speak. I'm seeing a no shake head, so no need to speak to this, of course. I will then turn to see if there's anyone in the room who would like to speak to this matter. Doesn't look like it. Okay. Is there anyone who's pre-registered to speak to this, Ms. LeGros, online?
Mr. Chair, we do not have any pre-registered speakers.
Okay, I'll just, to be entirely clear, does anyone want to speak to this matter, Canberra Road, before we close the public session? I'd like to ask again, and perhaps we should also check if there's any emails that have been received.
We are good. 4:26. Mr. Chair, I can confirm that it is 4:26 PM and we received no emails, and therefore looking for a motion to close the public portion of the meeting and move to your committee input.
I move we close the public portion.
I second.
Okay, so that closes the public portion of the meeting. Is there any comments, questions from the committee?
I have none, Mr. Chair. This is pretty, we've done a number of these before, and there's been no objections.
I have none.
Okay, thank you. And I don't have anything substantive either. I'm happy to support this. In my view, it meets the 4 tests laid out in the Planning Act. I did see the comment letter from your neighbor about drainage, and I appreciate there's a condition that's going to form part of the approval. So I think that's an appropriate way to address that. And of course, you'll be next to your neighbor in with this approval. So I think that's been addressed through the condition that's part of it, and I think otherwise the variances meet the specific test that being minor in nature, desirable, meeting the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and official plan. So happy to support it for that reason as well. Okay, I presume no comments on my comments, but unless you have anything else to say, then should we go to a vote?
Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. So file A11, 2025 has been granted. The applications are made for minor variance, a maximum front yard setback of 13.58 meters, a maximum driveway width of 8.2 meters. The application is granted, and the reasons are, number one, the variances are minor in nature, as it maintains adequate lot area for setbacks and servicing, is consistent with surrounding front yard setbacks, and the 2.2 meter increase fits the rural context and is not expected to affect neighboring properties or character. Number two, intent of the zoning bylaw is maintained. Number three, intent of the official plan is maintained. Number four, the proposals are desirable for the land, as the proposed dwelling will not significantly alter the rural residential character of the area, and the increased driveway width provides safe ingress and egress and supports the continued residential use of the property. Number five, these applications are granted without prejudice to any other application in the town of Pelham. Number six, the Committee of Adjustment considered the written and oral comments and agrees with the minor variance report analysis and recommendation that this application meets the Planning Act tests for minor variance. The conditions are, number one, obtain all necessary demolition permits prior to construction commencing to the satisfaction of the chief building official. Number two, obtain all necessary building permits prior to the construction commencing to the satisfaction of the chief building official. The building permit application is to include Niagara Region's approved septic permit. Number three, obtain driveway entrance and culvert permits obtained through the Public Works Department. All associated costs with these permits are the responsibility of the owner. Number four, submit a comprehensive lot grading and drainage plan demonstrating that the drainage neither relies nor negatively impacts neighboring properties and will be contained within the respective lot to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works or designate. Number five, obtain a new sewage system permit and install a sewage system in accordance with the Ontario Building Code to the satisfaction of the Niagara Region.
And I will second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Could we have a vote as well?
I vote aye.
I second.
Yes. Okay, thank you. So that concludes that matter. So that's been approved for the variances at 328 Camberrow. And we will now move to the Highway 105 Highway 20 East site. And again, we will repeat the same process. So we'll have Ms. LeGros go through a presentation, and then we'll take over from there.
There we go. Okay, so the next file is file A10-2025 regarding 105 Highway 20 East. The subject land is located on the north side of Highway 20, lying east of Station Street, being Part Block B, Plan 717, Part 1, on Reference Plan 59R 15848 in the town of Pelham. The application seeks relief from Section 8.4.3 zone requirement for landmark sites to permit a minimum step back of 0 meters for a landmark site, whereas a minimum step back of 2 meters is required above the 4th story. Again, Section 8.4.3 for zone requirements relating to first floor glazing to permit a reduction of first floor glazing from a minimum of 75% to 48% of the front wall and 39% for a distance of 10 meters from the front wall for an exterior side wall. Section 8.4.3, zone requirements for the front yard to permit the main front wall to occupy a minimum of 26% of the lot frontage and be built within 0 to 3.7 meters of the front lot line, whereas the main front wall shall occupy a minimum of 60% of the lot frontage and be built within 0 to 3 meters of the front lot line. Section 10, zone exceptions, DC-77, parking area on lot. A, to permit a minimum setback for a parking area of 2.75 meters to a side yard, being the north property line, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum of 3 meters. Again, Section 10 for the parking area on lot to permit a minimum setback for a parking area of 2.75 meters to a rear lot line, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum of 3 meters. And again, Section 10 for parking area on lot to permit a minimum setback for a parking area of 2.75 meters to a street line, being Station Street, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum of 3 meters. To date, the following comments were received. Building, refer to the condition. For public works, sidewalk crossings are to be continuous concrete, not painted line work. Tactile plates are needed at the corner of Highway 20 East and Station Street. A water meter chamber is required at the property line to match the adjacent. Niagara Region did not have any comments. There were 17 public comments received, and they are summarized as follows. All commenters opposed the requested variances, and they expressed the following concerns. Safety concerns with surface parking area, change of concept from underground to surface parking resulting in visual impact, reduction in glazing, noting impacts on community safety and commercial uses, lack of green space and amenity areas, potential pedestrian vehicle conflicts, changing character of the neighborhood, deviation from an original development concept, impact on property values, light pollution from the parking lot and concerns with trail crossing of Steve Bauer Trail, snow storage, drainage, and overall landscaping quality, shadowing effect on adjacent properties. Moving on to the minor variance test. Test 1, the variance is minor in nature. Relating to section 8.4.3, landmark sites, yes. The variance removes the 2-meter step back above the 4th story, creating a flat facade. Design features such as floor articulation, varied materials and colors, and ground floor landscaping reduce perceived massing. The variance is minor with no anticipated adverse impacts. Section 8.4.3 for first floor glazing, yes. Although the zoning bylaw defines Station Street as the front lot line, Highway 20 is the more prominent frontage given the building's orientation, which includes a high amount of ground floor glazing. Each commercial unit provides approximately 60% glazing, maintaining pedestrian interaction. The design avoids blank walls along both frontages, includes landscaping, and integrates the Steve Bauer Trail extension, all contributing to a pedestrian-oriented streetscape. Overall, the intent of the glazing requirement is maintained and no adverse impacts are anticipated. Section 8.4.3, front yard. Yes, although Station Street is the front lot line, the building is oriented to Highway 20, emphasizing it as the primary facade. The front yard deviation does not affect the building's ability to frame the street. Section 10, parking area on lot, yes. 3 small pinch points apply to 10 of the 118 parking spaces. Landscaping and building placement create an attractive streetscape, and the minor setback reduction allows for proper drainage without adverse effects. Test 2, is the variance desirable for the development or use of land? Section 8.4.3, landmark sites, yes, the variance enables a more efficient building envelope while ensuring high-quality articulated design that aligns with the urban design criteria of the town's official plan. Section 8.4.3, first floor glazing, yes, it supports the creation of viable commercial units and an attractive residential entrance, supports pedestrian activity, and reinforces the site's mixed-use character as a downtown gateway. Section 8.4.3, front yard, yes. Orienting the building to Highway 20 contributes to a strong street presence and aligns with the town's urban design objectives for a major primary corridor. Relating to Section 10, parking area on the lot, yes. It provides design flexibility, allows the building to be closer to Highway 20, and the limited parking encroachments do not compromise landscaping or the site's character. Test 3, does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw? Section 8.4.3, landmark sites, yes. The proposed 6-story building maintains the maximum height but removes the step back above the 4th story, resulting in a continuous facade. Varied materials and ground floor landscaping mitigate impacts, and the surrounding mixed-use area remains compatible. Section 8.4.3, first floor glazing, yes. The first floor glazing ensures visual interest and an attractive pedestrian-friendly frontage. Large windows along Highway 20 for commercial units and the residential lobby keep the street visually engaging, and the variance maintains the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. Section 8.4.3 for the front yard, yes. The front yard provision ensures a pedestrian-friendly and inviting frontage. The building maintains a 3.7-meter setback on Station Street and is oriented towards Highway 20, occupying approximately 55% of that frontage with a 1.6-meter setback. Section 10, parking area on lot. Yes, the parking area is adequately screened and buffered with landscaping, reducing visual impacts and preserving a softened streetscape. Test 4, does the variance maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan? Yes. The variances support the official plan's goals by promoting a compact, pedestrian-oriented, mixed-use downtown while allowing design flexibility that achieves high quality and compatible urban development. Based on the analysis, staff is of the opinion the variances are minor in nature, conform to the general policies and intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, and is appropriate for the development and use of land. Planning staff recommend that application A10-2025 be approved, subject to the following conditions: that the applicant enter into a site plan agreement with the town to the satisfaction of the Director of Community Planning and Development, and obtain all necessary building permits prior to construction commencing to the satisfaction of the chief building official. Through you, Mr. Chair, both the agent, Jared Marcus, and the owner, Mario Rapino, are joining us today.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. So we'll proceed today in a similar way to how we usually do, and for the last one as well. We'll hear from the applicant, Mr. Marcus, and if the owner would like to speak as well, the committee may have questions for Mr. Marcus, and then Mr. Marcus will take a seat. And then we'll hear from anybody else in the room who would like to speak and address the committee. Everyone is welcome to speak. We want to hear from everyone, want to hear your views on the variances. After that part concludes, Mr. Marcus will have an opportunity to respond, to provide any comments based on what was said. And then we will proceed to close the public meeting. We'll also check if there's people online, but we'll close the public meeting after that. So that will be the opportunity to speak to the matter. That will be the opportunity for the committee to understand and ask questions as well. So just wanted to lay out the process before we got started. And so with that, yeah, happy to hear from you, Mr. Marcus.
after I was told. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Jared Marcus. I'm an associate with Arcadis in Hamilton. I represent Ava Developments as the property owner. I do have some slides of some information I'd like to share with the committee. If that's on there. Am I able to share it here? Yeah, it's just that PDF there. Does F5 go to, no? It's just trying to do the view mode, so it took up the whole screen. We'll make it work.
I'll just minimize this for you.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have some slides I'd like to present through you. Again, my name is Jared Marcus. I'm from Arcadis. We are a land use planning office in Hamilton, representing multiple clients throughout Hamilton, Burlington, Niagara area. Owner of the property is Ava Developments Limited. My client, Mario Rapinoe, is here with me tonight. I'll try to keep my comments somewhat brief. First slide here is just a context of where the property sits within the town of Fonthill, as everyone's likely aware. The road running diagonal, well, doesn't work. The road running diagonal from top to bottom in your screen is Station Street, and the road running left to right is Highway 20, and this is the former lumber yards in the town. It's part of a two-phase development. The first phase is the townhouses you see just to the north of the red outlined property. And the second phase of that has always been envisioned to be a multi-story apartment building. The history of this dates back to 2017 when official plan and zoning bylaw amendments were done to rezone the property for residential uses. And again, that permitted the 6-story apartment building as well as the townhouses. We've represented Ava Development since 2021 when they came back before the town to amend the development to a different iteration of a multi-story development. And then again, we're representing them for this next iteration. Generally, the land use surrounding the properties is lower density townhouses singles to your north and northeast. And then running along both sides of Highway 20 are a variety of ages and styles of commercial developments. You have the downtown on the far bottom left of your screen, and then the newer commercial developments on the middle right of the screen. So the general built form around the property is parking lots with buildings set back from the street. Some newer commercial developments, more modern suburban highway development, we would call it. That's kind of the prevailing land use character. Next slide just shows a more zoomed in view of the site. As you've heard in the staff comments, seen in the staff report, the front lot line for the property is the Station Street frontage, even though the functional front lot line of the property is Highway 20, and that will be a somewhat consistent theme through some of my comments. Next property shows the site plan, and this is generally consistent amongst all iterations of the development. You have the townhouses at the north end of the site, and it was always developed or designed as a comprehensive development with shared driveways and a small parkette at the north there. The multi-story apartment building has always been at the Highway 20 frontage, regardless of which iteration of the development you've looked at. This iteration of the development has the building a more rectangle shape as opposed to a previous iteration that had a small rotunda at the corner. We've pushed that building up to the Station Street intersection, trying to keep that massing at the prominent corner. Behind it, there's parking. It's all surface parking now, approximately 118 parking spaces. The parking layout is generally consistent with all the previous iterations. The only change to this iteration is parking beside the right-hand side of the building or the east side of the building, and some additional parking immediately underneath the first floor of the building. We are proposing a 6-story building. It will have 80 purpose-built rental units through the CMHC program, and it will have approximately 480 square meters of commercial on the ground floor. Note there, it has 118 parking spaces, like I said, and 52 shared bike parking spaces, both within the building long-term for the residents and commercial, as well as some short-term surface parking, bike parking outside of the building. This just summarizes the variances that you heard from the clerk. The only reason I would put this up, and I'll make a note, is that in our interpretation of the zoning bylaw, one of the parking setbacks was not required. We did follow up with planning staff, but have not been able to confirm that, so we would defer to them after the presentation to comment. And that's for parking setback abutting an interior lot line, so the northerly lot lines. Our interpretation of the bylaw was that there was not a 3-meter setback there, so we didn't think it was necessary. My next comments are going to be out of order from the list of variances you saw. I thought it fit to just touch on the easy variances first and go into the more complex ones after. So the first one I would point to is the variances, what I call 4 and 5, that's the parking setbacks. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you see the parking setback to the rear lot line. So the rear lot line was the easterly lot line, not the northerly lot lines. In this case, you can see one parking space has a pinch point of 2.82 where the bylaw requires 3. And you can see that the parking curb line and the lot line diverge from one another. So the landscape area increases quite significantly after that first parking space. On the second image on the right, that's the Station Street lot line or the front lot line. And again, you can see that the dimension there is for 2.85 meters, while the requirement is 3. So it's effectively the width of the curb at that property line. So there's still quite significant amount of landscaped area. We are just talking 6 inches in that location. So in our view, it's quite a minor request. Next slide shows the front yard considerations. This was a 2-part variance requiring maximum front yard building setback between 0 meters and 3 meters. That's the image on the right-hand side of that slide. The pinch point, you can see that the building is a rectangle and it is oriented towards the Highway 20 frontage. So with the Station Street frontage being on an angle not perpendicular to that lot line, you end up with an area where the building is greater than the setback at the front, and then at the back pinch point, it is I believe it was 3.7 meters. Given that the front lot or the lot line on Station Street is the functional front lot line, and the town's policies focus apartment buildings or higher intensity development along arterial roads, that's the more appropriate location for the building to be close, and that setback's approximately 1.5 meters. So in this case, the front yard setback abutting Station Street is set back a little further at I believe it's 3.7 meters. The second part of that is a requirement for the building face to be 60% of the width of the front lot line. In this case, you have a front lot line that is approximately 70.4 meters and a building width that is only 18.8 meters. So the functional percentage there was 26.7, and we rounded that down for some tolerance. The functional front lot line, again, is Highway 20. The width there, as you could see on the previous slide, takes up a lot more of the front lot line on Highway 20, which is the more appropriate location for the building massing to be focused. Again, with the minor change to a maximum setback from that corner, some of the more sensitive land uses are located on the west side of Station Street, so it was a more appropriate location to have a greater setback. And as I explained with the reduction to the percentage of a lot line for a building face, again, that front lot line faces the more sensitive land uses, as well as proximity to the townhouses to the north. So to have a building take up 60% of that lot line would have had that building much closer to the lower density land uses, which we didn't think was as appropriate. Next couple slides deal with the design of the building. This one in particular, we're trying to provide a representation of what that building is going to look like when it's sited at the intersection. The variance for a landmark site requires a 2-meter step back, so that would be recessing the building 2 meters above the 4th floor. Step backs in general are an incredibly inefficient and expensive method of construction, and generally we utilize step backs when we're trying to mitigate issues of sensitivity. So if there were adjacent sensitive land uses, lower density land uses, or other types of land uses that would be impacted by a building's height, we would step those back. In this case, we're talking about a step back overlooking Highway 20. As you're aware, Highway 20 is effectively a 4-lane road. In addition to the width of that 4-lane road, we have approximately 11 or 12 meters between the face of the building and the curb lane. So there's a quite extensive planted boulevard that will be existing between the face of the building and the traveled portion of the laneway. As you've heard in the staff report, there's also I believe it's the Martin Bauer Trail. I apologize if I have that name wrong. It's a 3-meter paved asphalt multi-use trail. It'll run across the full width of our site and connect with a trail that continues to the north on the east side of the property. As you've heard, there is a high level of articulation already present in the design with the projected balconies, as well as quite a high level of windows and openings, as well as different colors of materiality. Different colors and materials on the facade to try to break up any concerns that a blank wall or the massing of a building might have. This shows a proposed landscaped area at the intersection. So you'll recall at the first slide of the site plan, there's a bit of a triangular area. So we're proposing a gazebo and some seating, as well as bike racks that will be, while not formally a public parkette, part of the public, feel like it's part of the public realm and welcome for public involvement. And that helps to mitigate some of those concerns as well. The next slide just shows an example of this type of development done by the same architectural construction team. This is located in McLeod Road in Niagara Falls. You'll see that this example is 5 stories, but you can imagine just one more story. We wanted to just show that there are actual built forms of this in the Niagara region very close by here to give an example of what this will look like when it's built. I don't have an image available, but the contextual location of this is on a 4-lane road. There's lower density land uses that are significantly closer to the building than ours, and similar commercial context on McLeod Road. So our submission is that, removing the requirement for a step back doesn't negatively impact the public realm. It doesn't cause any adverse impact to sensitive land uses or to the negative or to the public realm, and we felt the variance was minor in nature. The next few slides will be the last slides I speak to. This deals with the first floor glazing. This is an example of the commercial properties that are located to the east of the site on Highway 20. It shows examples where there's a high level of glazing, but the glazing in those cases are back of shop uses. So in this case, these buildings functionally face the interior of the site where the parking is, and then you have a blank wall of glazing with no animation to the street, no involvement of the retail spaces from the street. It's just a blank wall. There's some emergency access, but there's functionally no use between the street and the buildings. And that's a consideration that we're avoiding with this design. Next slide shows, again, what we're proposing. On the left-hand side, that's the facade of the building that's going to be facing Station Street. You can see on the ground floor there is a very high level amount of glazing. It doesn't meet the zoning bylaw calculation requirement. The requirement from the bylaw is to take that calculation from the ground floor to the top of that black canopy or that black awning. So it's a 4.5 meter height, and the requirement is 75% of that entire area. So with that canopy projecting out from the face of that building, we're not able to meet that 75%. What we have is the 48% before you in the variance, which seems like a fairly steep ask, but it is, in our opinion, it is not a major request. There is functionally still a lot of glazing on that, but for the reasons with the canopy as well as structural columns, that's what we're left over with. Similarly, the image on the right just again shows the perspective of what that'll look like from the intersection. Again, it's not no glazing, it's a lot of glazing on the building. 75% really functionally is a window wall, and we didn't feel that a window wall of glazing was appropriate here. This is the facade that will face Highway 20. Again, you can see there's a lot of glazing here except for the structural columns. You can see the columns running between windows. And that's really where the difference becomes just the canopy that was running along the top of the front facade. That space continues all the way across the building. Now the calculation before you in the variance is for 39%, and that represents just the first component of that building at the 10 meters from the front wall. That's the calculation from the zoning bylaw. But we've continued that glazing component all the way across the building to try to help animate the street, keep windows from the commercial units facing the street so that there's still a high level of glazing. That 39% doesn't account for all of the facade. It is just at 10%. So that's the presentation for you today, Mr. Chair. We would be happy to answer any questions. I know there's a lot of concerns from the public, and those have been addressed, I think, fairly adequately through the staff report before you tonight. We think the variances are minor. They're desirable for the development of the site, and they're consistent with the town's zoning bylaw and official plan. So those are our submissions to you, Mr. Chair, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Marcus. I do have some comments and questions, but I will turn it over to other members to start.
I'm going to defer for the moment.
As well.
Okay, all right. They want to hear from me first. Okay. Just a matter of kind of clarification. When you were speaking about the parking areas, and I appreciate showing the details because I hadn't picked up on that before. The staff report refers to 10 spaces, and then you referenced one area where you were unsure if the variances were required. I understood the two areas, one being on the kind of the east side, one being on kind of the west side. There was a part that was, I think, was referenced at the north end near the parkette. Could you show me that, explain that to me? I think we'll need the presentation back up with the site plan would probably be helpful. Thank you.
laser pointer, it doesn't show up on the screen.
Okay, I have a large version in front of me.
okay.
If you describe where it is, I'll try to find it here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a pinch point. There's a row of parking at the north end of the site abutting that small parkette. And on the right-hand side of that row of parking, it's a similar pinch point to what was identified on the other two locations. It's, if memory serves, it's 2.83 meters instead
see it
of
now.
3. So if the variance is required there, again, it's very minor. It affects just the one parking space there.
And how many, if you didn't have the variance, just so I understand this, if the variances weren't granted, you would lose parking spaces?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we'd have to investigate if there was an ability to try to, accordion
Reconfigure.
things, for lack of better words, move things around on site, see if we were able to make up that space. At the bottom end of this, on the bottom right-hand side of the site, we're looking at, that would be a loss of 1 parking space. The one we just spoke about at the northeast end, that would be 2 parking spaces. If we were unable to find a way to shift some things laterally, then we would lose, potentially lose, I believe it's 9 parking spaces on the west side.
I see, okay, and just to be clear for everyone in the room, I'm not suggesting doing anything, I'm just trying to understand what the impact is of the variances and if this, how it's been considered. I guess that's really the nature of my question, but I think I understand your response, which is you need to investigate it. Okay, I understand now, I see where the pinch points are, or the areas are. I do have some other comments or questions, but is there anything from the committee on that point before I move on? No? Okay. Wanted to ask about shadows. There wasn't kind of a substantive comment or discussion on that, and I anticipate there was no shadow report required. But wanted to nonetheless ask that question, ask why that is. You spoke about the step backs as it relates to Highway 20. In this case, buildings on the north side, shadows would go north, not really south, although other reasons to have step backs. Can you describe that to me? What is the impact of shadows in this case with the building? And this really as relates to the step backs or generally?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a provision in the zoning bylaw that we haven't referenced here because we're not seeking any change to that. And it requires an angular plane abutting low-density uses. I want to say it was 60% angular plane. Anyways, there's a substantial angular plane requirement where a multi-story apartment building abuts adjacent low-density residential land uses. So if you're looking at the slide here, there is, it's hard to see, but there is a red dimension from the closest point of that lot line to the building. And from there, I believe the calculation is that you go up 7.5 meters, and then you take an angular plane from there of either 45 or 60, and that creates the angular plane that's deemed to be appropriate when you have a multi-story building adjacent to low-density residential land uses. We more than complied with that requirement, so that's why we didn't really touch on it. But if you were looking at this building and thinking of shadows, the morning is going to cast shadows onto Station Street, and in the afternoon, if you were having shadows, they would cast across the parking lot. Given the relatively low height of the building and the fact that we are greater than, I'll call it 1-to-1 separation, 1 meter height to 1 meter horizontal separation from that pinch point, it wasn't deemed to be necessary for a shadow study.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to ask Ms. LaRocque or Mr. Edwards if you had any comments, just so I understand. Was there a shadow study required, and what's your view on shadows and the relationship to the step back requirement?
Mr. Chair, I can confirm that a shadow impact analysis was not requested. There were changes to the Planning Act this past summer where we're actually not allowed to request that type of study anymore. In addition, the building is located as far away as possible and generally in the same location as where the previously approved development was, and the height isn't any higher than what was previously approved on the site. And so, since no variances were being requested with respect to the height, nothing further was requested.
No, it's all questions can come to the chair. We'll call on everybody in the room at the appropriate time. You're welcome to speak to it that time. Thank you, Mr. Rock, for clarifying that. Any comments or questions on my shadow questions? Okay. Thank you. And again, these are just for me to understand how it was done. Okay, I think I did have other questions, but they've all been answered through the presentation, so I don't think I have anything else for now, but let me now turn to the committee for anything else they wish to ask or raise.
Again, I'm going to defer.
I'll defer.
Okay, is there, Mr. Marcus, is anyone else speaking on your behalf that's here? No. Okay, so yeah, have a seat, and thank you for your comments. As I mentioned before, we will hear from anyone else in the room who wishes to speak to this matter, and then we will come back to Mr. Marcus, and after that happens, there won't be any further comments. So now is kind of the chance for everyone to speak and to be heard from. Relating to this, I would ask, is there anyone, I don't think this is the case, but is there anyone in the room who's here in support? Sometimes we like to hear people who are in support first. I don't think that's likely, but wanted to ask and invite them to come forward. Doesn't look like it. Actually, maybe I will check if there's anyone online as a next step before we hear from people in the room who's online to speak to this.
No,
did you
we had
mention that?
interest by one party, Mr. Chair, and I do not see that he has logged in online.
Okay, so we'll check again later, and perhaps we'll come back to that. Okay. So anybody in the room who would like to speak, you're welcome to do so. You can come up to the microphone and say your name, and I want to get your thoughts on this so the committee can make a decision.
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Malcolm Morrow, and I live in Unit 14. Sorry, Ms. LaRocque, Madame LaRocque, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Can you clarify your statement of the height has not changed from the original plan?
So I know you have a question for Ms. LaRocque, and that's okay. But next time, you'll ask the chair the question, and then I'll direct it. We just want to make sure that we follow
Okay,
the
Mr.
rules of
Chair,
procedure.
that same
Thank
question
you.
is applied to you.
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ms. LaRocque. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The zoning bylaw permits a maximum height of 6 stories, and that's what
But
is
was
proposed.
that the original plan? Mr. Chair?
I would like to have Ms. LaRocque finish her response, and then you're welcome to ask another question through me.
Mr. Chair, no variances were requested with respect to the height. The height was compliant with the zoning.
Okay, thank you. So as I understand it, the height is, they're still below or at what's allowed with the height.
Okay, the reason I'm confused,
Okay.
okay,
Yeah,
and it's
try
easy
to
to
help
do
you.
because I'm retired now. But the reason I'm confused is because when we purchased it, I thought the original plan was 4, maximum 5 stories. And in a previous presentation to this committee or to a similar committee, there was an additional floor allocated to the plan. The reason that additional floor was provided was to offset underground parking. I'm not sure what her position was, but it was a city planner. She went to them and said, I want underground parking. The outcome of that discussion was that, okay, we'll do potentially do underground parking, but we need another floor. That incremental floor, which is now 6, was originally agreed to offset the incremental investment required to do underground parking, because it's not cheap, we get it. But so it's now in my mind, or at least based on what I've heard, it seems like the position has now reversed where they're asking for the similar 6-floor plan, but it's going from underground parking, which would protect the integrity of our investments, which have already declined because of previous changes in the complex. That's where most of this dissension is coming to. I mean, you heard points about glazing. Is that major? In my estimation, yeah, a little bit more would be nice. But the major issue that will impact the current homeowners is the fact that it's now gone from underground parking to above ground parking. Mr. Chair, was anyone else part of those discussions here?
Okay, I understand now the comments, which I hadn't appreciated before. So it was the understanding that the height was granted, or the approval that exists was granted as an offset to the cost of the underground parking. And where does that leave us now that the height's been established at a certain height? That's, if I summarized it correctly, that's what I understand. So I understand the comment. Perhaps I'll ask Ms. LaRocque again if there's if you wish to comment on that, and also want to hear from the committee as well on that comment.
Mr. Chair, I don't have the history of when the height may have increased and what the reasoning behind that was. Perhaps when Mr. Marcus comes back up to the microphone to try to address some of the comments, he can give some history on the revisions that the plan went through over time.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Sorry, but before we go back, I wanted to ask my members if they had any comments or questions on what Ms. LaRocque had said.
Not at this time.
And myself also.
Okay.
If it would help you, Mr. Chair, I think we have a copy of the original plan, which will show you what the original plans were. And it's substantially different. And I understand the rationale for it, from a business investment perspective. But, I mean, we were told that this would be a landmark property, that they wanted to use it as a shining star for the town of Fonthill. But it's being somewhat bastardized. Respectfully, it's being bastardized. If you would like to see a copy of what we were shared when we originally bought this 5 years ago, I'd be more than happy to share those plans with you. Because it seems like some things have changed from the original to where we are right now. And, people change, things get lost, you're not aware of it. But, that's something significant in regards to the parking. And I think the parking's the number one issue this entire group probably has.
I understand. Okay. We will follow up on that one, so thank you. Thank you for those comments and appreciate understanding that.
Good job, Malcolm.
Okay. Open to anybody else who would like to comment, speak. Come on forward and please start with your name.
Hello, my name is Kiefer Sparrow. I'm over in Unit 7. Mr. Chair, I was wondering about snow removal. We haven't made any reference to snow removal in this discussion yet. And if you look at the map, really, where is the snow going to go? Right now, where our snow goes is pretty much onto where that property is going to be. Now we have to think about, if this parking lot gets made, where is their snow going to go? Where is our snow going to go? Now are we going to have to be hiring dump trucks to truck it out of here? I just would like a little more color on that to know how our livelihoods might change as a result of this huge parking lot being built in our front yards. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Good comment, good question. I do see the drawings suggest some locations for the snow removal, but I would like to get clarity on that for the reason you've expressed. I will say this as well, that snow is supposed to remain on property with some exceptions, planned condominiums and such. So, each owner's responsible for their own snow. It doesn't necessarily address the issue that you're speaking about, but that's the general kind of understanding. Any questions or comments based on that?
I'm just wondering, the decrease in the parking lot size, is that going to affect the snow removal?
So let's, we can direct that to Mr. Marcus if you'd like. Does that
Yes.
make sense?
Yes, for sure.
Okay. I'm just making it. And as I understand it, it's not, it's the width of the parking area. So, yeah, maybe it does kind of impact that. Any other comments or questions based on snow? No. Okay, well, maybe I'll ask planning staff again if you're invited to comment if you'd like, Ms. LaRocque, Mr. Edwards, on snow removal.
Through you, Mr. Chair, snow storage areas are typically shown on the site plan drawings, and that's something that is reviewed by Town Public Works staff as part of the site plan approval process. So the drawings, servicing, grading, along with snow removal areas will be reviewed to make sure that there is space available for snow storage on site.
I see, okay. So what I'm hearing, what I'm kind of translating is that it's a site plan, it's addressed through the site plan process. And although it may be impacted to an extent by the variances, so I'd like to understand that maybe a bit better. So thank you, thanks for that clarification. Okay, welcome, and please let us know your name and
Yeah, my
Hearing
name is
your
Kimberly
comments.
Hashi, Mr. Chairman. I'm at Unit 6. Wasn't mentioned, I'm not sure if it was written in as a question either, but where the Bauer Trail is connected and the, I guess, the building with the other, next door to the Bauer Trail, sorry. So there's, you know, a dance studio and a hair salon, and then there's a sidewalk to the Bauer Trail. And from what I'm seeing here on the map, from my limited understanding of these types of maps, it looks like there's going to be an entryway and an exitway off of Highway 20. And yes, Highway 20 has just been put down to 40 kilometers in that area. As it is, we have a lot of traffic in and out of the 23 units with delivery parcel trucks, sometimes using it only to turn around. So now if they're able to come into the area off of Highway 20 and exit on Station Street, that stops their 40-kilometer zone and also stops them from using the street light at that corner of Station and 20. Also, very close to that entry and exit is a street light near the liquor store and the other retail area where several accidents happen every year. We hear them, and you can see them from our balconies. So it's a concern for safety of traffic in and out of that. And now you're adding 118 parking spots and basically a runway through our existing 23 units. We have children in the 23 units, and, you know, we have garbage collection through there. So it looks like with all these parking spots, 118 parking spots, you're going to have the back end of the building facing our units with all their garbage collection and all their cars, not visible to 20, but only visible to our front doors, basically. It doesn't help the value of our units that we paid for, and it doesn't match with what we were sold into as buying into this community. And we do feel that we are a community. So to me, that entrance and exit on Station and from 20 is a huge concern. And you'll have at least 80 cars coming and going. We were also told when we purchased that it would be another corporation, so we're a condo corporation, that there would also be a condo corporation. And I think I just heard in the meeting today that these would be rental units. People that rent don't shovel snow, they don't water lawns, they don't care for the property like owners do. Units 15 through 31, 2 of them have actual owners living in them, the rest are rentals. Those rentals, people that live there, they were short-term rentals. people coming and going, causing a lot of traffic. City was alerted of that. We were told that short-term stays were 29 days. If a lot of these 80 units are used for short-term stay or Airbnb rentals, and you've got the parking and coming and going with all the traffic, it decreases our value even more. So as a community, we're getting, the caboose end of this building facing the front of our homes. Not very attractive. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you.
And sorry, Mr. Chairman, I did send some pictures to Shannon LaRock. I meant to send it to also Andrew. I was in a rush before I left, so some of them didn't get through, regarding the unfinished pavement in our community, where they've cut curbs, where sidewalks are damaged. I will send all the photos when I get home for tomorrow morning for you all to view. None of it has been completed by Avia Properties. So even though they're saying they're going to do certain things, we have seen in the last 5 years they have not completed the previous property that they worked on. Thank you.
Thank you, and sorry, ma'am, before you go, we may have some comments or questions from the committee, so
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you, those were
Running
very,
away.
very helpful comments of some items I hadn't considered. I had a couple of actual questions, and maybe it's actually for Mr. Young, about what's done, or maybe it's Ms. LaRock, I don't know who would be the right person for this, but I want to ask about transportation and traffic, and what was the assessment that was done with respect to the driveway location and movements, the Highway 20 one, I think in particular, so the Highway 20 and the location of the intersection that's not very far away that was referenced. Could you describe that to me? How is that assessed, and what was done respecting that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the Highway 21 is a regional road, so that would have been vetted through the region. That would have received their approval, not the town's approval on that one. So we would not have a statement on that one. That would be through them. The one on Station Street, it's far enough away from the intersection that we don't foresee it as being a problem. Station Street on the north side of Highway 20, it is busy, but it's predominantly busy with, the residents coming out of that direction. As for the way people drive, sorry, we can't talk on that one because we have an opinion, but we can't state it. There may be an opportunity to put up signage on the site as part of the site plan agreement, stipulating that it is private property, which a lot of condo sites are technically private property. I'm not quite sure what type of agreement is going to happen on this particular development. That's something the planning department have to look into. But I mean, as far as access and egress goes, we still need to allow people to get on and off site.
Right. Okay, thank you. And just by way of comment, I'm looking at the site plan, and I see how the connection is, for the Steve Bauer Trail, I see how it's connected to the existing trail. It is kind of designed on the site plan to have a connection that seems to make sense to me. And I think there's a kind of a bench there that's being put in as well. So it looks like there's going to be an improvement to that piece conceptually from what I'm seeing on the site plan. Okay, so I think I appreciate, Mr. Young, the explanation of the road, even though it may not kind of satisfy. At least I think I understand it. In terms of the ownership, and this being a rental building, not a condo that maybe was planned at one point, this is something I've seen many places, not just in Fonthill, all over the place. Lots of buildings that have contemplated at one time were condo, now a lot more rental buildings make more sense, and there is very limited ability for a municipality or for this committee to determine tenureship. So in other words, you plan for a use, you plan for an apartment building, you don't plan for how it gets occupied, whether it's a condo, if it's an apartment. And so I just wanted to kind of make that kind of general comment, but I wanted to hone in also on the Airbnb piece, because I know that the town has a short-term rental bylaw
29 days.
that has rules. And I wanted to ask staff about that. It makes sense to me, but I don't know it very well. But and I don't know if this is a question for who this is a question for. Maybe it's even you, Ms. LaGros, maybe not, maybe it's you. Ms. LaRock probably knows it best. So could you just remind us of what rules would apply in this case?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So there is the requirement for a license and the requirement to meet zoning. Short-term accommodations is what the zoning bylaw calls them. And we have requirements in terms of which zones they're allowed in. I believe they are allowed in commercial zones, to which it is commercial zones, correct? Downtown corridor. So short-term accommodation is permitted in this zone, but it would have to meet licensing requirements.
I see, okay, thank you.
So, excuse me, Mr. Chair. So that would mean potentially half of these units could be Airbnbs?
I think, so, yeah, feel free to direct the question to me, but, yeah, okay, let me understand what's contained in the bylaw. Is there a limitation per building, or how would it work in an apartment building for short-term rentals?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's really not a situation that our zoning bylaw addresses at this time. It's really not a situation that we've ever come across in the town of Pelham. Like, we don't have a lot of large apartment buildings that would permit, and we also don't have that many short-term accommodations. So at this time, there isn't a limitation on the number that could occur in a building.
Okay, and I appreciate that, and I want to make one other kind of point as well. If there were no variances here today, if they were building with no glazing and everything was just, they were ready to go to site plan, they could still do whatever it was, whatever they were permitted. So I don't know, I appreciate the concern, and I think it's a reasonable one, but I don't know what turns on it as it relates to these variances that are before us. And I understand the sensitivity, because these are, issues that I would be raising also in your position, but I'm not, you understand what I'm saying? I'm not sure how it ties to, some of the setbacks and other items that we're speaking about, but I think something that can be explored a bit further. I worked, for just a bit of an aside, in the hospitality industry for a while, and I agree, there is obviously some Airbnbs here, but it's not Niagara Falls. It's not a building of Airbnbs. That's just not, I don't think that's what's going to happen in this kind of situation, but I do understand, and I think that comment makes sense to me.
And Mr. Chair, getting back to the snow, so as a condo corporation, then you have a condominium board, and they arrange to have snow removal and maintenance and things like that performed. As a rental building, who's looking after the snow? And with a shared driveway on Station Street, our snow plow is going to come in, which we pay for, in to plow our street and allow garbage trucks to come in and collect our garbage. Now, who would be responsible, because I don't have this knowledge, who would be responsible for maintaining snow removal in a apartment complex as opposed to a condominium corporation?
So, yeah, the property manager of the rental building is obliged to remove snow. The same property standards bylaw applies to everybody. So if snow is not removed properly, or they're putting snow onto your property, it's the same as any neighbor who's not adhering to the rules. Maybe I would like to ask Mr. Marcus about this a bit further, if there's some intention to share it or some way to do this in maybe a logical way, especially for the shared kind of driving areas. So perhaps we can get some clarity on that.
Because the driveway, Mr. Chair, on Station Street is located right next to Unit 18, and Unit 18 will take the brunt of this traffic of 80-plus vehicles coming and going, on his major investment. So it diminishes his investment 90%, in my opinion, because of the traffic flow. And I don't think we also addressed the lighting for our parking spaces, for this many parking spaces, on how that would disturb our units and our second floors for sleep and, our current way of life there. Having all those, in front of the park, there's going to be parking spaces. And again, it's a shared road. There's a dotted line that shows where the entrance is to Unit 18, but the roadway beside Unit 18 off station is shared. So who plows that? Do we pay to plow that? Are they plowing that? Like, it starts to get muddy here, and we pay a lot to have maintenance in our community. It's very expensive. It's the most expensive thing besides taxes.
Yeah, thank you. We'll find out more about that piece. Any questions or comments?
Just before we leave the issue of the access onto 20, Mr. Young, through you, Mr. Chair, I do note that Niagara Region had the opportunity to respond, and I see no response from them. And it's not the first time that we've had the region go quiet on a traffic issue. They are aware?
Through you, Mr. Chair, when we first got the application in back in 2017, there was a discussion of making that access a right-in and a right-out because of the location to the Sobeys intersection there. I would have to go back and look at the previous comments to see if they would still apply from the region back in 2017. You know, if that's what they're assuming, they've got no further comments rather than no comments, because the intersection hasn't changed from the 2017 application.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, does the town have the ability to make a suggestion to the region that a right-in, right-out might be appropriate for such an intersection?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can. You know, we could recommend a right-in and a right-out, or we could address it through a traffic impact study. You know, we could do a scope traffic impact study at time of site plan to ensure that, you know, the access is suitable at that location.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Zarko, any comments for you, questions?
No further questions.
Okay. Okay, thank you for your comments, very helpful, understand that.
Okay, and just, I'm sorry, it's probably been talked about, but I'm not sure. The snow removal is one thing, but the runoff, that the snow would make water, and even just with a heavy rain, the water runoff on all this pavement would run towards our units, which is downhill from this construction site. And we already have an issue with bad grading and water on site. So I think, I'm not sure if Mr. Young was on a walkabout with previous Barbara Weens to our community, where he would have seen there was improper grading and so forth, but I'm not 100%. If that was you or not, do you recall? Yeah, so you were there. So you saw the issues that we had with water. So now with nowhere to put the snow and all of it melting and running towards our units, it's going to exacerbate and create more water. And already a lot of the units, especially units 1 through 13, is basically, you know, a marsh. Half the time we can't mow because it's too wet, and you know, the lawnmower can't get through. So we're paying a lot for maintenance, and then we can't mow the lawn because it's causing ruts and divots because it's soaking wet.
Yeah, thank you.
So that's a huge issue, the snow from this pavement. Thank you.
I do have kind of a question for staff on that. So what is the, could you describe for me kind of the drainage planning that happens now or happens at site plan stage, just for my understanding, to address things like runoff and drainage?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, was there a question in that?
Yes, my question was, how does site drainage get addressed through the site plan process or this variance process we're in now?
Well, it can't get addressed through the variance because it's not part of the variance. Okay, so the current drainage scheme is indicated on the plan. There is a stormwater system, a positive stormwater system with catch basins and storm sewers. There's also a Caltech system in there to hold the storage. That's already been designed, part of the previous development. this development, although it's got more hard standing for parking, there's less runoff from the roof because the building is less. So the area, hard standing area itself has not changed, but the previously approved drainage scheme has not changed either. So there is still a positive drainage system in there that will pick up and collect all the parking areas.
Right, okay, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said about the drainage system. Sorry, I couldn't hear. I'm getting old. Sorry about that.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. There was currently, the previous application in 2017 had a storm system. So in the parkette in the middle of the area between your roads and this one, they're putting in a storage system, which is called a Caltech system, to store the flow from the building. So that will get discharged into that Caltech system, who in turn will then get piped all the way down to the outfall on the east side of the building behind the adjacent units that runs down the Steve Bow Trail.
Adjacent which units? I'm a little confused.
Towards the ballet shop, and it heads that way. So where the outlet, where your drainage comes all the way around the back and heads out the east side, theirs is actually piped to the same head wall, and it goes through a pipe system.
Next to the complex that's next to us, the...
Behind there, there's that trail that runs down there, and there's the ditch next to it. That's where it all heads out. That way.
Currently, we do have a big pipe there, and it runs uphill, so the water doesn't actually get to it, because it was improperly installed.
It's really bad. The drainage is brutal.
It's very bad. And I know it wasn't addressed in the variances, but this is concerns because every change that's made affects us directly. And I have been to the city several times, Mr. Chairman, to find out who actually owns the property. And I came and I found that it was Avia. And then I came just a few weeks ago, and it shows that Avia is in Mississauga. And it shows also that a building is for sale, and the unit number that Avia exists at is also empty. It shows Remax pictures of an empty office. And then when you look at Maribel, which is owned by Mario Rapini, it gives an address of 1465 Station Street as their head office, Unit 26, which doesn't exist. So we haven't had no avenue to sort of find out anything until this meeting. And unfortunately, it's just the variances that are being addressed, but not other issues with property and with the previous owner, or the owner that was involved in building the 23 units in our community. So I'll leave it go now. I've said a lot. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you for those comments, very helpful. Thank you, welcome, and start with your name, please.
Okay, Sue Harris, Unit 16. I'll try and be very brief. We bought our townhome 3.5 years ago. We sold a condo in downtown Toronto, and we put an additional couple of $100,000 into buying our townhome here. We were quite happy to do that because we thought we were buying into a nice development with a parkette and all the things that we were told would be the case. We're now finding that we might just as well be in downtown Toronto living on a parking lot if this is what's going to happen, because it's just going to be another 85 cars, and it's such a shame. I can't believe that we put all that money into buying something that we thought would be a great investment or a nice place to live, more importantly. I don't really mind about the investment, but a nice place to live. And it looks as though this is going to be a bit of a nightmare. I'm sorry, but I just had to voice that. Thank you.
I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you, Ms. Harris. Any comments on that or questions? Okay. Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to speak? All right, maybe we should check online again. Is there anyone on Zoom?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, we did not have the gentleman log in online.
Okay. Have we received any emails? I will check again later, but wanted to check now.
Through you, Mr. Chair, at 5:42 PM, no, we have not received any emails to the clerks at Pelham address.
Okay. Okay, I do want to hear from Mr. Marcus, and I have a list of comments and questions that we heard about that I want to understand better, but I wanted to ask the audience again, if there's anyone who wants to speak. This will be the last chance for anyone to make comments. As I mentioned, it's important to the committee that we hear from everybody, but we go in the order that's set out in the rules. So just wanted to ask again if there's any additional comments. If there is, you're welcome to come up and do so now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just wondering, and I'm sure the rest of us are also wondering, if our roadway will be completed in the original 23 units that were supposed to be adjoined to the new condo corporation. We were told the road would be completed after construction because they didn't want to damage it. So we've lived for 5 years without our top layer of asphalt that doesn't appear to be coming from anywhere or anyone soon, seeing as I'm not sure if Mr. Rapini is going to pave it, or we don't have this information. Avia, like I said, is an empty office building in Mississauga, and Maribel is, a non-existent number on 1465 Station Street. So we don't know who to contact or how to get hold of, whether we had a lawyer or not, to get our surface completed and our curbs fixed and our broken sidewalks that were damaged from previous construction. We don't feel we should pay for that ourselves, and we don't know, and we have no way of knowing of how this will be repaired moving forward, if in fact it will be the construction of this apartment building.
I see, okay.
Thank you.
Perhaps I just want to ask Ms. LaRocque if you could clarify for me, the time of the original approval of the townhouses, was there it was a plan of condominium or draft plan agreement? Did it address things like timing of paving, assumption of roads, or maybe not, because it's a condominium road? Is there anything to share relating to that from the town's perspective?
Mr. Chair, there is a site plan agreement in place that laid out the requirements for the development, and securities were held by the town. I will be investigating to see if we're retaining any securities for that top course of asphalt. Following this meeting, I did see your message earlier today, and I will look into that. Typically, we don't speak to the timing for the top coat of asphalt. It's not, we generally don't expect construction to span out as long as it has here, unfortunately. But it's something that we'll investigate. And as for the requirements that may have been laid out in the, condo articles, that type of thing, the town's not privy to that. We don't see that information on our end. We approve the development through the site plan agreement. It lays out the requirements for that development to be completed to town standards. But as for who's responsible for what, or any promises that are made between the developer and purchasers, we're not privy to that piece.
Mr. Chairman, during my visits to the city, I've been handed a book and given the general direction of where I could find the information on who owns the actual property that we're discussing today. And again, it says Avia, but as far as I can tell, just through Google searches and such, that Avia may or may not exist. But now today, Mr. Rapini has said, Mr. Mars has said that it is
Address your
Avia.
comments up here.
So we're having difficulties trying to figure out who is Avia, so that we have an avenue or someone to reach out to finish our pavement. And because of that, the city, unfortunately, does not give me that information. I'm told it's a corporation. They don't tell me who's in the corporation, who's part of it, any names. And I did manage to get someone to divulge that it was, in fact, Mario Rapini. But again, until, a few weeks ago, I wasn't able to determine who, in fact, owned the property. So it puts us in a precarious position. Even if we were to hire a lawyer, there was no, no person that we could go after. Also, at my personal address, I've had 3 people knock on my door to serve papers to Unit 261465 Station Street, which in fact doesn't exist, from lawyers. Thank you.
I understand. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I can just add on to what Kim said on the so what factor of the circle not being paved. Okay, so for 5 years, we've lived there. We were told that the entire complex was to be finished in a projected 2 years. Understand stuff happens, things change. But because there's no pavement, like we pay, I originally lived in Burlington and I had a 5,000 square foot house in Burlington. We moved here to retire, downsize, and my taxes here are substantially higher than what I paid in Burlington. And because there's no road, we're told that what we were promised with having pickup of, like basic pickup of your garbage in front of your house, they won't do it because the road isn't finished. So now everyone's garbage is thrown in front of my place. And I understand, it's pretty windy and it goes everywhere, but there's just basic stuff that flows downhill from things that should have been done, which haven't been done, which impacts other services. And that's basically, I'm not saying there's no other services, but that's the major service that we're paying for I think it's $6,600 in taxes for a 2-story townhouse. And we're not even getting pickup of our garbage. We pay for the removal of the snow. We pay for the landscaping of the entire property, including along the street.
Yeah, thanks for those comments, and it certainly sounds like there's some items to sort out relating to the project generally. I think I'll leave it at that for now. Are there any other comments? I don't want to miss anything. I know and I want to make sure we've heard from everyone, because this, again, as I said, is your chance to do so and for the committee to consider it. Okay, doesn't look like it. So I want to call Mr. Marcus back up to speak to these items. Some of the items were, you're welcome to come up as I speak, Mr. Marcus. Some of the items, especially recently, were not really linked to the variances. No matter what variances were required, or if no variances required, you'd have the same issues. And I think those issues need to be solved, no matter what happens here. That isn't a decision of the committee. The committee doesn't have power to order someone to pave or to fix how snow gets addressed, except as it might relate to the variances, so maybe that's not the best example. But there's many things I heard that are directly about the variances, and there's things I heard that aren't really about the variances, but are about other things. And, I think one way or another, we're all neighbors. We're all going to be neighbors here. I'm a neighbor to an extent as well. We all live in Fonthill, and I think these are things that need to be resolved. I think the town, as I heard from Ms. LaRocque, is going to look into a little bit of stuff. I do think some steps may be needed, as they've already started from the current owners there, the townhouses. But I do hope, regardless of what the committee decides, that some of these items are addressed, but some of them are independent of what we're allowed to do. The committee is making a decision on the 4 tests, on the specific things that we heard about. So I just wanted to kind of set that out there, but I do want to hear from Mr. Marcus nonetheless on some of these items, because, I understand. It is, yes, I do have some questions. It does make sense of how the site's going to function, for example. How's it going to function with a driveway that's shared, those kinds of things. So I have a list, Mr. Marcus. You're welcome to come up. I'll let you speak, Mr. Marcus. I won't interrupt. But then I may have some stuff to come back to. And sorry, one moment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a lot of comments there. Like you said, there's many things here that are not related to the minor variance, the specifics there. There's there's some things that occurred before my company's time on the file that I can't speak to. Like I said, before we started in 2017, after those townhouses were already constructed and that site plan had been approved. So I'm not privy to some of the decisions or promises that happened there. So I don't want to put words in other people's mouths or suggest that things were done incorrectly. I honestly don't know where to start here. I'll look at my list. Snow removal, as I'm sure you're aware, all new developments in urban areas, it's a big concern. It's competing interests. Everything's a competing interest. The density required to make a project economical, the parking required to satisfy neighbors, future residents. We hear it all the time. There's too much parking, there's going to be too many cars, there's not enough parking, there's no magic number, there's no perfect response to satisfy that. We have a sufficient amount of parking on the site to satisfy the zoning bylaw. As I mentioned to you earlier during my presentation, the general layout of the site has been consistent through the iterations. There's always been a parkette at the north. There's always been a driveway from Station Street, a driveway, full access driveway from Highway 20, and there's always been parking around there. The difference between this iteration is that some of the parking, if you're looking at the site plan, some of the parking closest to the building, in a previous iteration, that was more just general paved area for the building functioning. Back of house uses, garbage collection, loading, things of that nature have always existed behind the building, and that's the nature of, the town and the region and municipalities in general wanting buildings to be facing the street, be prominent to the street. Back of house uses have to go somewhere, so, they have to be located at the back of the building. That's just the nature of development. Concerns about who is going to live there, the tenure of development, whether it's condominium ownership, whether it's freehold ownership, whether it's rental ownership, purpose-built rental ownership. At the end of the day, as you mentioned, we don't deal with that through the zoning process. We deal with the built form of the apartment building, which is what's here. As I mentioned in my original remarks, we are proposing purpose-built rentals through a CMHC program. I don't know the exact specifics of the program, but I have to assume that short-term rentals like Airbnb would not be a permitted component of that. So, this development will be rentals, but it will not be short-term rentals. There was a comment about lighting. Lighting is a site plan matter. It was approved through the original application. My understanding is that lighting has been installed around the condominium, around the townhouses and the parkette generally. There will be some slightly modified locations for lighting throughout the development, but it's consistent with what was originally approved. And I would defer to Ms. LaRocque, but generally municipalities require some kind of shielding of light fixtures so that they're not shining directly across property lines, things of that nature. But it is a site plan matter, and those technical details will get resolved with town staff. Drainage, along with parking, along with all these things, drainage is a problem, not a problem, is a concern, let's call it, on every development. Like Mr. Young mentioned, there was a drainage plan approved with the original iteration of the development. It was installed with the original development. My understanding is that was certified through the original development, and any changes to, any increase to imperviousness, that's being reviewed through this of the site plan. So those, as a matter of business, we can't, make changes to a site that will be a detriment to drainage. So those, again, those issues will be dealt with through the concurrent site plan. Paving of the road. As I said, I wasn't involved with the original application, so I can't speak for the previous owner on what was done or not done on that development. So I can't really offer too many definitive comments there. I know Ms. LaRocque promised that staff will look into that matter, so I assume that'll get addressed appropriately. The traffic entrance, like I said, so as long as I've been involved in the project, the traffic entrance at Highway 20, that's always been a full moves access approved by the region. So I don't see that would be changing. It's also our direct fire route through the development. So I don't believe that a right-in, right-out access would be functional there. You do need 20 feet of unimpeded access for a fire truck, and the fire route runs from Station Street through the driveway from Station Street to Highway 20. So I don't believe that we could modify that to a right-in, right-out access. And share, concerns about, there were concerns noted about cost sharing or shared driveway. And coincidentally, this is something I raised as a potential issue a week ago, but they're right. The original design of this project was premised on shared services, shared accesses, whether that's a rental building or a condominium and freehold ownership and whatever future ownership model comes in place here, there is a shared access. And often there are features or easements within the original condominium registration that would enshrine those rights. I haven't reviewed the documents myself, so I don't know what's captured within the original condominium documents. So I don't know what's in place. If the case were that there were no legal mechanisms in place, those can be established through other processes. It won't be a condominium, so if the adjacent landowners and the owner of 105 wanted to engage with each other and establish appropriate cost sharing and legal access easements, those can be done through either this committee of adjustment for a part of an easement or through the condominium, through future agreements between ownerships. There's definitely mechanisms or ways to address these matters. We've done it on multiple projects across my 20 years in the business. So there's definitely mechanisms that we can still utilize to make sure everybody's happy with the final product.
Okay, I appreciate those comments. Just on the last point, isn't access an issue to be addressed right now? Like, don't we need to know how this is going to function as a legal mechanism? I appreciate what you're saying, that this can be sorted out and there's ways to do it with easements or whatever, but, or not. How does this committee or not approve a set of variances where, well, the drive aisles, as I understand it, driving over a condo separately owned, at least where it exits Station Street?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would agree the appropriate time to deal with this would have been at the original
Right,
time
well,
of
we're not
approval.
there, right, but what about now?
As far as the shared access, there's only one shared access, and that's from Station Street. So when I considered this briefly a week ago, it seemed like there were two options. Two parties willingly get together and address this thing, or two parties acrimoniously butt heads, and my client could have his own individual access to the development, and you'd end up with a 40-foot paved access side by side. I don't think that's a desirable outcome in the situation.
No.
Like I said, that access has always been approved there. It was built there. It should have been legally dealt with previously, but it'll have to be dealt with now.
Okay, I'm wrestling a bit with this one. I agree, it has to be kind of figured out. And it doesn't make sense to have a second driveway or whatever else wouldn't make sense and would have other issues, I'm sure. Maybe I could ask Mr. LaRock and or Mr. Young how this has been dealt with before, because and to me, it does to an extent. I mean, it's a site plan issue, but does go to the variances to the extent that a new planning approval is required, and you have to look at the variances together. Anyways, I'll pause there for any comment from Mr. Rock or Mr. Young on this.
Mr. Chair, I think it was 2017-ish. There was also a plan of condominium that was approved for the property as a whole. And that plan of condominium included common elements, of course. And though I don't have the details in front of me at this moment, there were areas through that were established to be shared areas. So access, the parquet, for example, is another good area that was supposed to be shared by the whole development. I was under the impression that that was all dealt with through that process. And again, that's a number of years back. If you look at the current changes being planned for the site, we have an approved site plan agreement that shows the accesses in the same location as where they're being proposed, despite the variances today. And I didn't speak earlier on the traffic and the comments about the right in, the right out, the regional access and all of that. But in 2017, traffic was analyzed at that time as part of the original applications. Because at that point, we went from the site being, former industrial site that was now being redeveloped for these residential purposes. And so that was really the time where everything was very analyzed. So traffic was looked at, building locations, densities. There was remediation that was done because of the former use. So that's really where you saw all of the technical studies and reports come forward. So as part of those 2017 approvals, the region did approve an access to 20 that was a two-way access, an in and an out, and also the two-way access to Station Street. At this point, we've got site plan approval in place, which carries that approval forward. And of course, we're on the third amendment as part of these variances being requested today. But those accesses and the fact that they're in and out remains consistent.
Okay. I think I understand better. Thank you. I've talked a lot here. I do have some other comments from Mr. Marcus, but I'll pause here for any comments on this topic or anything else. Okay. So we'll have to go on the basis, as I'm understanding it, that there was or there is an existing set of planning agreements, provisions that allow the site to function in this way, because there's an existing site plan agreement that's already approved that would allow it to function this way, whether or not the variances are approved. That same condition would exist, or effectively the same driveway condition would exist at least, right? Okay, that's what I'm hearing. That's helpful. Okay. So can we go back to the snow removal for a moment? And I appreciate this isn't really a variance question, because the snow removal is likely entirely the same or very close to the same, except as it may relate to the parking slightly, or the parking dimensions. Can you describe the way how that will work? And again, I'm appreciating it's a bit of a site plan question, except as it relates to the parking function in the driveway for snow storage.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, like I've said about everything else, snow storage, it's becoming a bigger issue on these more intense sites where we redevelop. The site plan process really doesn't ask us to develop a detailed plan of who we're going to hire, where they're going to push the snow, where are they going to pick it up, truck it off site, those types of things. There's landscaped areas throughout the development, whether that's to the east, small pockets in the center of the parking area, snow has to get pushed somewhere at the end of the day. And, you know, the landscaped areas are where it will go, whether that's central to the, sorry, when I say central, I don't want to imply central parquet feature. We're not going to plow snow up on that parquet feature, but more central within the parking area, there's a landscaped space. On the east side of the development, there's landscape space, and that's generally where the snow will be pushed to. Again, it's not it's not something, a plan that we develop this early or through the site plan process. It's, you know, it's potentially something that a municipality might consider moving forward, but it's not one of the steps that we look into prior to occupancy of a site. So there's no definitive answer to tell you, well, we've hired someone who said they'll move snow here, there, or the other place. It's, you know, we tried to provide pockets of landscaped area, and inevitably that's where the snow has to be piled.
Okay, thank you. It actually does take me to the end of the list that I had kind of notes that I wanted to come back to. Although I wanted to repeat the comment I kind of made off the top, which is a number of items have been raised. I know your clients in the room that are not directly or very remotely related to the variances. Some aren't, some are directly related. You know, I do encourage resolution of these topics and coordinating with the town and beyond as needed.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, Ms. LaRocque is here. She's hearing the comments, so I'm expecting that there will be follow-up between the two of us in the coming weeks through the site plan process.
Okay, any comments from the committee? Okay, all right, thank you, Mr. Marcus. Okay, should we check if there's anyone online or any emails?
So, Mr. Chair, I can confirm it is 6:09 PM, and we have received no emails, and therefore looking for a motion to close the public portion of the meeting and move to your committee input.
A motion to close.
Seconded.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. McCann, Ms. Sarko, any comments or questions on this?
I've been scribbling furiously here for the last few minutes. Through you, Mr. Chair, first, a question for staff. What appears to be a site plan submitted to us, and yet in the documentation, there's a comment that the applicant is seeking an amendment to the site plan. I'm curious as to, do we have an official up-to-date site plan beyond the only other one that I could find from 2018?
Through you, Mr. Chair, do you mean like an amended site plan agreement, or do you mean whether the plan that you have with the application is the most current that's being proposed?
Well, I guess I'm looking for is there an official site plan that we can refer to? Has there been one finalized?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the one that you see before you tonight with this application is the most current revision of the site plan that's being proposed now. The last approved site plan agreement that we have on file, on record at the town, is from 2021, and it is different, of course. But what you see in front of you is what's being requested through the variances tonight.
Through you, Mr. Chair, does the site plan from 2021, is that still based on underground or above ground parking?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's based on underground parking.
Okay. Through you, Mr. Chair, we're being asked to, each of these variances by themselves to me is minor, but the sum total of the agreements, the fact that we're adding 80-some parking spots above ground, the effect it's having on the neighboring community is major. And that's what I'm wrestling with right now, is so much of what we've talked about has been because of the change from underground to above ground parking. And should not the site plan be approved by, who approves the site plan?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the Director of Community Planning and Development has the authority to approve a site plan.
And through you, Mr. Chair, is there an opportunity for the community to provide their input to a site plan variation that is relatively major and does have an impact on their community?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the site plan process itself is not a public process. There isn't the opportunity for the public to provide input or comments into that. The variance process that we are participating in tonight is the opportunity. As long as a development meets all of the zoning requirements as of right, it's not a public process, but if there's a variance, that would be the opportunity or the need for a zoning bylaw amendment, something like that.
Okay. I'm just going to pause for a minute on that one, Mr. Chair. Maybe one of the other committee members wants to jump in.
Yeah, I appreciate those comments, Mr. McCann and Ms. LaRock, on the site plan and the design. I think appreciating there's clearly a change from underground and height to surface and not. What I find curious, though, is that there isn't a parking variance required, except for the setback for the parking area, to use a Latin term, de minimis, very small kind of number, very like, you know, you can't, it's hard to even, you wouldn't even be able to see the size of the curb. So I see that as the requirement for the parking area, but there isn't, I guess another version of what you're saying is I'm struggling with the idea that there isn't parking deficiencies or issues that arise relating to height, except for a limited issue with step backs, which we got clarity on earlier in the meeting. As I understand it, a similar building is permitted as of right. It's not the same with the parking location, but otherwise it's similar. Otherwise there would be surface parking, there would be similar parks, similar driveway entrances. And you know, the question before us is whether these variances, the glazing, the step back, the parking strips, et cetera, whether those meet the four tests under the Planning Act. It's not an assessment of whether or not we like the site plan or whether or not other issues have been addressed. I would design the site differently if I had a magic wand and money was no object, but that's not the questions before us. It's not a do we like the plan or not question. It's a does the building meet the four tests with the variances that are before us? Because what the applicant can do is come with a different building and you get something similar, and maybe that's what needs to happen because you don't agree with the variances, but it's not the principle of the building is what I'm driving at, unlike other applications that come before the committee.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I agree entirely. I went back to try and trace what I could of the history, and I found the original bylaw in 2017. I even went back and watched the YouTube video of the council meeting where they approved it. And there's almost no information. And then the next year, 2018, there's the site plan with the underground parking. Okay, I'm gonna make the leap here that, had the community had the opportunity to have commented on the time, that things might have been totally different, and it would, I would suggest to me that council made the decision they made in 2017 based on the premise of an underground parking, and how would above ground parking have impacted their decision back then. So that's the conundrum that I'm dealing with right now as far as, how major or minor these variances are.
No, there's the public portion of the meeting is closed. I think, and for better or worse, there could have been a conditional zoning. There could have been written in that it could have been very specific about the building form, and that didn't happen, or that wasn't whatever for whatever reason, because that's not what's before us. So this building is permitted as of right. except for the things that are before us that are not permitted, the glazing and that kind of stuff. But the height is permitted, and the parking location, subject to the piece, is permitted. So that's not before us. And in one scenario, at least, that's why I kind of asked those questions, is they'd lose 10 parking spots, maybe that would trigger some other problems, or they'd reconfigure it, but it's the same building.
Again, you and I are, I agree with you, Mr. Chair. Through you, question for staff. How many parking spots are they required to have based on the number of units and retail space?
Through you, Mr. Chair, their site-specific zoning requires 1.25 spaces per apartment dwellings and 3 spaces per 100 meters squared of the floor area of the commercial space.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Can somebody do the math on that for me?
Through the chair, to clarify, it would require 100 spaces for the residential units and then 18 spaces for the commercial units, which they have provided on the site plan.
Through you, Mr. Chair, refresh my memory. How many spots do we have in this? Are we asked to approve here now?
Through the chair, sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah. How many spots are currently in this site plan right now?
Through the chair, 118.
Right up.
Right, and what we heard before was that notionally the site would be reconfigured to fit the spaces, or they'd need a variance for parking spaces if, in a scenario like that. And just as a aside, this committee has granted parking variances, and the 1.25 standard is not the same as other municipalities. Any comments, Ms. Sarko, on anything you want to add? Okay. I know we're wrestling with it a bit. Anything else, Mr. McCann, while we?
No, wrestling is the word.
Okay. Do you? Okay, actually, I'm going to call for a recess for the committee until 6:30. It's 6:21 right now that I have, so we'll return at 6:30 sharp.